City Solicitor Joe Braun, our Safety Director Sue Madsen, Lieutenant Humphrey is here as our Sergeant-at-Arms. We have former council members Pat Mays and Neil Ori are here. Thank you all for being here. And Todd Osmer, I forgot Todd. Sorry, Todd. So sorry. So sorry. Before we get started, I would like to have a moment of silence. As I'm sure you all have heard, there was a shooting, another mass shooting today in Texas at an elementary school, and this is pretty close on the heels of the mass shooting just a couple weeks ago in New York. So if we could observe a moment of silence. Thank you. All right, open forum. Kim Lukens.
My name is Miss Kim Lukens, and I'm a resident of Loveland City, 142 Hounds Run, and I'm a citizen of the United States of America. And I was hoping to maybe go more this way to the public versus the council. Am I allowed to stand more this way? I'm not quite sure.
As long as we can hear you.
Oh yeah, you'll be able to hear me. All kinds of communication. Oh, you know what? It's the wrong piece of paper, so I'm going to have to wing it. I believe that the current charter for the Loveland City is more of a autocratic government type of institution. When Tim Butler resigned, I believe that what was in the charter was that the council and the mayor are the people that had control over who would be filling Tim Butler's seat. And what I understand true democracy as when the people have the opportunity to elect positions like the council and mayor. So it's just a question out there of whether or not there are some parts of the charter that might be really not more a reflection of true democracy, but more of a reflection of autocratic democracy, and that is more of a control and more of a, I don't have the definition here. I don't want to. It's more of a power and control type of definition. If you don't believe me, just look it up. So I guess I'm just wondering how many parts of the charter. I don't know who put together the charter. I have no idea. But that was one aspect. And I think maybe to replace Tim Butler, Mr. Ori was the next person in line, and then I was last. And that seems more like a representation of the people electing possible candidates for the position that is open now because of Tim Butler's resignation. Another point that I wanted to speak about off the top of my head now is the idea of the Loveland Sims Association that apparently makes the decisions for the Brown Landing building. The president, he told me in a letter that they were very happy with the market analysis company they were using in Cincinnati to determine what type of businesses would go into the Brown Landing. And I know that there are other market analysis companies that are much more sustainable, that don't solely focus on alcohol in restaurants. And I'm not saying that I don't think that alcohol in restaurants aren't good for economy. I just know for a fact, unfortunately I don't have the facts with me, that people, you guys, we're behind, man. People in the United States are looking for more of a sustainable community. And it's your choice, you know. it's just, I'm just putting it out there. It's a fact. So I don't know how many more minutes I have. How many more minutes do I have? Can anybody tell me, Misty?
1 minute.
I wish I had the facts with that. And I just, I'm just kind of saddened that the president wouldn't allow me to just even speak to the board. I wasn't coming in any kind of conflictual attitude. It was just simply to present a market analysis idea that I know companies in the United States have outside the Cincinnati company. And he just wouldn't let me do that. And I don't know what the board rules are, but it's just interesting, that's all. So I have like 30 seconds probably. I don't know. It's sad. I think that there couldn't be more emphasis. Higher quality of life, you guys, is more of a sustainable community, and it really isn't. It's just. I'm not whining. Somebody said I was whining. I'm not whining.
Time's
So
up. Thank you.
yeah, well, no problem. Goodbye.
Tom Scovanner. Mr. Scovanner, before you get started, there is a spot here for.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I hate to put the word apology down. But that's what I'm
I'll
here
be
for.
happy to put that down for you.
But that's what I'm here for.
I'll write it for you.
As you may recall, a few months ago, I showed quite a bit of cynicism as to the city of Loveland, if you will, the city of Loveland government and the vigorous zoning review that our city has. I showed quite a bit of doubt about that, and I was wrong. And I'm here to freely admit that I was wrong. Now, you all didn't have to vote on it, but that's fine because planning and zoning did what they were supposed to do. They analyzed the Dries proposal. They listened to citizens and friends from around Loveland, and they voted to not recommend the Dries proposal. Now, just a tiny caveat is that proposal, while that one is put down, Dries still has an option until, as I understand it, the 18th of June. So we don't know if the final shoe has dropped on that. But I'm here to freely admit that I was wrong, that my cynicism was misplaced. The Planning and Zoning Commission did their job, and I appreciated that. Mind you, there was a lot of citizens that helped guide them in that direction, and I'm glad that they were here. And a lot of those citizens actually are continuing on trying to help Grail find a different alternative for that property, an alternative that the Grail will be able to benefit from and Loveland will be able to benefit from, not in the way of a housing development, but something more in keeping with their traditions and more in keeping with what the citizens that came out were looking for in use of that property. But I was wrong in my doubts, and I'm happy to admit that. And I'm happy that that was the result. So that's why I was here this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up is review and approval of minutes from the May 10th, 2022 meeting. Are there any changes, additions to those minutes? We have a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the minutes?
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
Mr. Kennedy.
So on, for the third time actually, on Saturday, February 19th, City Council met outside of City Hall, which I believe is helpful at the HCC, with the moderator, Doherty, who does an excellent job. And for those of you who don't know, every 2 years after an election, City Council gets together off-site with city staff, department heads, and we go over what our plans are for the next 2 years, what the City Council goals are for those 2 years. At that point in time, the last 2 years leading up to that, City Council was updated somewhat quarterly on the progress on the other goals. And it is a very unique, I think it's a neat setting. The public is always obviously sometimes in attendance. They get to see how it all works. But I know from my standpoint, the department heads, Scott and Cindy, and those that are the people behind the scenes, police department, who work really hard to do the services, they get a chance to relay to council sort of what their trials and tribulations are and what's involved, how much work goes into finding outside grants, for example. But then I think from staff standpoint, they also get to see what the city has to deal with from budgets and politics and all the things the city council has to deal with. It is a neat work session. So from those, we came up with 4 standard goals. City staff, then we go offsite for a long lunch and with Jane again, and we sort of start the strategies that meet those goals. And again, we're joined by various sundry people in the city staff, and we then come up with resolution that we present to council. The goals sort of fall under 4 main categories: vibrant downtown, business and residential vitality, infrastructure, city ops, and financial management. And then from within those, there's myriads of offsprings of tasks that we will do, and certain members will be the champion for that. Under the downtown goal, for example, the main tasks are a regional approach for an additional bridge crossing, parking and traffic, and we think it's time in the upcoming year to finally tackle a special improvement district in the downtown. We've been talking about it for a while. COVID wasn't a good time, but we think it's timely to move on with the creation of a SID in the downtown district. Myriad of benefits that would do it. Under the business and vitality, we talked about with the funding the city received really going whole hog, and it's going to take a lot of city time, but the end results for the Chestnut Street project, really attacking the Loveland Madeira Road corridor project that's coming forward soon. The Planning and Zoning Commission will be approving the comprehensive plan. The connectivity of our subdivisions, you're seeing that go on right now. I will tell you, not a week goes by that I don't hear from somebody of the 3 subdivisions that front Loveland Miamiville Road, how excited they are that sidewalks that will tie those 3 subdivisions in are coming. We actually have 2 staff members who live up there, so we get to hear from them pretty often. And then the other under the vitality is really, and we heard this from Cindy, this was the voice of a resident, is really not attacking, but I'm going to just say the best way to say it is prioritizing trees in our community. And both from an ordinance standpoint, from a use standpoint, so that is, we feel that falls under business and residential vitality. Under infrastructure, we need to address the water fund. For a long time, the city has held a hold and waved the flag that to its residents. We have very low water rates. We help this compensates for our very high sewer rates, which we can't control. But meanwhile, it's an enterprise fund and it has needs. And so Mark and I are working with the Finance Commission with a long-term plan. How do we mirror up the financial needs of the rate structure with the needs? But then mostly is really, we focused on 2 big projects that we really need to prioritize. One's the Harrison Street widening. It does multiple things for traffic and for flow and for safety. And also it's sort of that sleeping thing that you don't see of the underneath the table, and that's the East Loveland project that we have, that is flooding, that is drainage, that's working with the county while they replace the bridge. Mirroring our project with the county is so important, so those residents, the Andy Batemans of the world, the people that live on East Loveland, aren't looking at 2 road closures at the same time. And then lastly is what we classified as city ops and financial management, which is and actually something on council's agenda tonight when we're looking at compensation. It is important for city staff that we are competitive. I know Sue sees it from a police standpoint. I know Chief Huber sees it from a fire standpoint. We also have 51 we have 51 staff members. We have a myriad of public works and city staff members. And then also, of course, constantly reviewing and following fiscal policies and capitalizing on what we have. We have obviously have a great finance director and that. So those are put into a resolution format. And I think it's important to note that these goals, these 2-year goals, follow probably one of the most significant planning phases this city has faced. If you think about what has been accomplished, the city completed a downtown strategic plan. The city completed a comprehensive master plan. The city completed a master plan for Municipal Park, and will be soon completing a downtown streetscape plan. That's a lot, and you see the goals coming out of those plans, and that's a big deal for a city to slow down, step back, and put all that into paper. So I think the city council should really be commended for that planning effort. So once this is done, you'll see the councilmanic sort of resurface back up with a set schedule for the plans, and the resolution just sort of formalizes what we want to bring forward to you. So we're pretty excited about what we can accomplish in these 2 years, and it's always nice when you have goals and tasks, and some of them are already underway. You already have the funding for Chestnut. You're already designing your sidewalks on Loveland Miamiville Road. So that's really where we're at with the council goals.
All right. Any comments or questions? Mr. Bateman?
Yeah, I think that the city staff should also be commended. It's a group effort for sure in establishing and prioritizing these. I just wanted to make a general comment. We've been hearing a lot about issues around sustainability and quality of life, and when you look at some of the from a resident standpoint, and I think a lot of what you see in these items themselves, with like the big brownfield remediation project, pedestrian and bike lane connectivity, Loveland Miamiville sidewalk, the tree, codify regulations at protecting and enhancing tree growth, installation of sidewalks on North Carl Brown Way, East Loveland sidewalks. I think that really speaks to sort of the walkability, the ease of residents, sort of reducing their carbon footprint, enjoying the amenities that our city has, not just downtown, but throughout the neighborhoods. So I think we are not only listening to what residents have to say, but living those lessons and showing them as proof of what we aim to do in these goals. So it's one of those things where it's wrapped up, like you said, Mr. Kennedy, in other plans, and it's going to be sequenced in different ways. So it might not be so evident when we look back on it from 5 years from now. But I think that's why it's good to see in this record that it is something we're thinking about as a big part of our strategy going forward. So I just wanted to call attention to that.
Thank you, Mr. Bateman. Anyone else?
Mr. Kennedy, the other thing that's good about having these goals, and I know you do this or have done it in the past, and I assume you will continue, is to identify for us, at least on a quarterly basis, what tasks have been accomplished, and we get that grid where you put that out, and that's obviously a public document. So it's great to then use that as a measuring stick to how we're doing and accountability. And then, we also are trying to, get out public information on what we're doing, not only from the perspective of the city manager's position, but just what council and what staff are working on. Our newsletter is a great way to do that. So it's not as if we take these goals and we put them on a shelf and we don't then, use them. I think our city's been pretty good at following up on goals, and usually by the end of the 2-year period of time, the vast majority of them have 5 or 6 bullet points under them where things have been accomplished. So it's a great system, and I commend you for that.
Anyone else? Well, I do want to commend staff also for putting this together. We all get together, staff and council, and spend about 5 hours on a Saturday, but then council kind of puts it aside, and the rest of you have to spend all this time putting it in some meaningful document that makes sense and that can be tracked. So I think you've done a good job with putting together the goals, and I'm sure it'll be similar when you put together the grid for us. So thank you for doing that. Why don't you go ahead and read the resolution, Ms. Brents?
Resolution establishing goals for the city of Loveland.
Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Resolution 48 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Kennedy?
So the city has two salt domes, East Loveland and near the nature preserve, and one up in the Commerce, up in our industrial park. In total, the two storage bins will hold 1,200 tons. Commerce holds 450, and the East Loveland dome holds 750. When we bring these forward, our salt bits to you, we're really looking down the road. We've already completely topped off all of the domes during the last recently, so we're completely set. Outside of a massive snowstorm, none of these this bid will actually be expended until 2023. So we opened bids on Monday, May 16th, and bids are up a little bit higher. I was reading some articles, partly gasoline prices, partly a little bit of the trucking industry, but not too far off from where we were in 2020. Obviously considerably higher than we were in 2021. We don't know exactly what we'll purchase, but it typically falls between 800 and the 1,200 tons. So that's how we write the resolution. We typically go dump for 90% of it. We did do some piling on this last one to really top everything off and to use up some of our supply. So we are completely topped off with salt. City staff, we make the Public Works makes their own brine, so there's no purchase in that. The city actually makes their own brine, so there's no expense. So this legislation would authorize for me to enter into a contract with Cargill. We've used Cargill in the past for 88.49 dumped, 95.49 piled. The legislation was reviewed by city solicitor and is in order, and believe none of this expenditures will incur till the 2023 budget, where we'll put in this number outside of a massive snowstorm that cripples the world, because we have quite a bit of snow. As you remember, you authorized the purchase of a new salt truck, so we also have we now have a larger crew of salt trucks too. So pretty much take that. The Public Works takes great pride in the fact that we received numerous calls after any snowstorm from people saying, I just want to tell you, I knew when I was inside the city limits, because the way the streets are covered are taken care of, and they take great pride in that. They really do. So that's all I really had on it, Mayor.
All right. Any comments or questions? Mr. Hart?
Mr. Kennedy, so we're not going to spend this until 2023. Is this just lock a rate in for us?
It locks our rate in. Yep. And we'll budget it. It'll be when you guys approve the 2023 budget in November, that dollar amount will be in there, and we'll likely make that purchase again. If we don't, the cargo will store it for us, but they charge us a bit of a storage fee, so we like to get it on site. That's why we went with the piling. So we paid on that last one, we did pay $92.60 for some tonnage. Otherwise, they just dump and we push.
Would we be in danger of a worse rate if we didn't lock this in now? Potentially.
I'm not 100%. I just, you can see what the other rates were, Morton and Compass. Gosh almighty. I mean, Morton's higher than what we're paying for pot. Their dump charge is higher than what we're paying for piled.
Sure.
So they feel pretty good that this is the time of year when these companies know that people aren't in an urgent mode, because the prices get adjusted during urgent modes. So the city, and this goes back to Tom Carroll, the city has learned over the years to be bidding for them during the non-critical periods, because, if you're in the middle of the winter. So I think this is the best price the city would get.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense.
Vice Mayor?
Mr. Kennedy, obviously the price increase from the last one is more than 10%. Is this something you're seeing across the board with vendors, or is this unique to the salt market? Just wondering. I assume inflation accounts for some of it.
With the articles that I was reading, because that's fun, sitting and reading articles about salt prices. They attribute most of it to the trucking industry as a whole. Of course, they contribute considerable amounts of it to gas. It would have been almost like in the height of COVID. Luckily, we were stockpiled in the height of COVID. it was like baby formula the way they were coming out with these prices, clobbering some of them smaller guys that do malls and stuff and crippling them. So they what I saw universally from the articles I was reading online was trucking industry, gas prices, and just pure supply. But again, we're really stocked right now with our supply. So,
For my own education, what's the difference between dumping and piling?
the dumping, they bring a truck and then we use our bobcats and backhoe and we push it in. Piling, it's like a big chute. So it's like a big conveyor belt. It layers it on a conveyor belt and shoots it off. It allows us to really top off.
Okay.
It allows us to top off our domes. That's why we're we're fuller now than we've ever been. It's a little animated, but that's how it works. Big conveyor belt.
I'm glad I asked.
Does there, anyone else have a question about salt?
You never know too much.
Mr. Ping, you're good?
Engineering.
I think I'm good.
All right.
So we-
Read the resolution. Jesus.
Resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into contract with Cargill Inc. Salt Road Safety for the purchase of road salt for the 2022-2023 winter.
Any comment on the legislation? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Resolution 49 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Mayor. This evening, we have a resolution before council to approve the One Ohio Region 14 representative and alternate for the One Ohio State Recovery Foundation Board. This, again, ties back into, actually, I think it was one of my first meetings. We talked about Region 2. The city's in two regions, Region 14 and Region 2. And Region 14 it's Warren County, Claremont County, some counties around Springfield, Ohio, and Butler County. So there's several counties there in that, and they have to appoint a representative and an alternate to serve on the statewide foundation board. Each of the 19, or I believe the 19 regions in the state will do this. And the counties had a pretty fair system. They had nominees. Then they sort of each determined and ranked them and then compiled the scoring. The scoring came out with Miss Mayor, Greta Mayer, who's the Chief Executive Officer for the Mental Health and Recovery Board of Clark, Greene, and Madison County, and Karen Shera with Claremont County. And then there was another candidate, Fairfield Municipal Court Judge Joyce Campbell. Miss Meyer finished first in the ranking. Miss Shera finished tied with her with 15 points, but they both expressed a willingness to serve. And the county, Claremont County, has requested that in Loveland that we make an action here to agree with these appointments. So, being a participating member, the action required this evening, there's no fiscal impact, obviously, of this. We really don't know, again, when we're going to get the recovery funds. They say soon or imminent. Not sure what that means. I guess that's different things to different people, but that will happen at some point, and we'll start to see. I guess this is positive progress with regard to the statewide foundation board forming, and perhaps we'll see some decisions soon from that. So,
Thank you. Any comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Bateman.
Just a couple of questions, actually. First off, any news when we would need to do this for the Hamilton County region?
we have not, and I know prior to my arrival here, I think City Manager Kennedy had much. I think Claremont County, I think Region 14 is a little bit further ahead than Hamilton County is. Hamilton County just sort of formed more recently. I imagine we'll see a recommendation or a request for a recommendation soon. My guess is with Hamilton County being its own region, the scoring process, the selection process may be easier, or it may be more difficult. It just depends. There's a lot of, but we can certainly reach out to Jeff Ludo and find out when that may or may not occur.
And another follow-up to that was, I know that I'm just curious if the amount of funding received from each region would it be proportioned to the number of people residing in that region? Like, in other words, could we expect maybe more from the Hamilton County portion than we would from this one?
Possibly, possibly not. I think the formula for allocating the funds right now is a complete mystery. And it's really going to be as determined by the statewide foundation board as they push money out to, and those keep in mind for regional projects. And then there'll be other allocations that are already predetermined. Well, depending on how many entities sign up and there's percentages and all that. So there'll be that. And then you also have funding that was distributed to the statewide foundation that's then pushed out by the statewide foundation to the various regions. So there's really two different tranches of funding that will come from that. So I wish I could give everybody a definitive number, but it really depends on how many ratify the agreements, and then also how the statewide foundation board decides to push projects out.
Okay, and then my final question is, so these representatives and alternates that we are going to be voting on for the Region 14 and then subsequently and sometime down the road for Region 2, these are not the folks that are going to be determining the distribution of the opioid settlement funds.
The opioid settlement funds, and I think back to the rather lengthy presentation I sat in when they first kicked this off, but it really had to do with the number of communities that ratified the MOU. It was really tied to that, and that's the way that the MOU was structured, because the litigants were, and Mr. Braun could advise more on that, but the litigants were basically trying to get as many communities to buy in on the MOU through the structure of the distribution agreement, so that they didn't have to continue facing, a lawsuit here, a lawsuit there. That was the whole point of the settlement. So that will come as a result of the MOU funding formula and that structure. How the statewide foundation board, it really is going to depend on what the regions push up as projects. One region may find that, I don't know, an example project, maybe it's to fund recovery services. And they may say, yeah, we'll give you, and they request X and they get Y, and then they'll push that back down to that region, just depending on the allocation of the funding. I imagine that there'll be some robust discussion at the statewide foundation board meetings to see how they decide to allocate those funds. So,
so these folks, Ms. Mayor and Shara, will be like our advisory board, or advocating on our behalf or on everyone in that region's behalf.
They are the single voice for Region 14, for that 7-county region, in the context of this 19. Actually, I think the state, there may be more than 19 members, but because the governor gets a couple of appointees, and I think ultimately that can help swing the direction one way or another. But so it'll be a rather large board that's going to be making these funding decisions.
Okay.
But obviously we would expect, and I know Ms. Shara from Claremont County is an advocate of this region. So those folks their job is to go and argue on this region's behalf and the projects that they're submitted.
And so, just by benefiting from being in multiple counties, we will actually kind of have multiple advocates at that on those discussions.
Well, we'll have Region 2. We'll have a Region 2 rep, whoever they send. We can reach out to them, and we'll have the Region 14 rep. So we stand, a little better chance than others.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Read the resolution, please.
Resolution appointing initial Region 14 representative and alternate representative to the One Ohio Recovery Foundation, Inc. Board.
Comments on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart? Resolution 50 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Right?
Thank you, Mayor. Second item I have is a resolution regarding the American Rescue Plan Act lost revenue standard allowance calculation. So the city has received its first half settlement of its ARPA money. The American Rescue Act state and local fiscal recovery funds, and we expect to receive the other half this year. And part of that, there was an amended Treasury rule that that basically allows municipalities, recipients, to take the standard allocation when determining revenue loss to utilize the ARPA funds. Previously, that threshold was lower. They now increased that based on feedback from communities across the country. They increased the standard allowance to 10 million. So basically, if you receive less than 10 million, you don't have to go through a complex revenue loss calculation. You can take the standard allowance. I can tell you from prior experience, we took the standard allowance at Union Township for the 5 million plus or minus that they received there. And I know a lot of other communities, there's really no need to go through this complex exercise to determine lost revenue, given the Treasury Department's determination, granting most communities and award recipients that flexibility. Further, the resolution designates the use of the funds as for government services. Government services, as we know, as a city, we provide expansive services, even more so than what we did at the township level. And those services range from, police and fire, municipal utility services, economic development, infrastructure downtown, streetscaping, you name it. So it really, the government services designation really grants the city the greatest flexibility with regard to the use of those funds. So.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes.
Are these funds receivable here in 2022 or 2023?
So these funds, if you read the way that the program was set up, you were supposed to get your first tranche in 2021, and I believe we received that in mid to late 2021, and then you're supposed to receive it within 1 year thereafter. So we should see the second distribution soon in 2022.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Read the resolution, please.
Resolution designating funds distributed to the City of Loveland from the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 as lost revenue due to the public health emergency, utilizing the standard allowance and authorizing the use of funds for the provision of government services.
Thank you. Any comment on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Resolution 51 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Wright?
Thank you, Mayor Bailey. Last item I have is the local government fund alternative formula resolution. This is a resolution that is adopted, at least in recent years. It's been adopted annually because it 574753 of the Ohio Revised Code allows villages, municipalities, townships to adopt legislation to establish an alternative method for the local government fund allocation for various counties that excludes the municipal corporation with the largest population. That is not the City of Loveland. We aren't excluding ourselves because of our small footprint in Claremont County. But nonetheless, the mayor's been working with the Mayor's Association to, I believe, and I'll just turn it over to you on that.
All right. Just a quick brief history. This started in, I guess, 2019 is when the townships got together and did not include the villages and cities in this, and they came up with an alternative plan. If they had, because they had the population and enough of their entities, they were able to pass resolutions that excluded Milford. It used to be 3 entities, the largest municipality, so Milford. Second would be Porter County Commissioners. Third would be all the rest of us put together. And each one, I guess Milford had a veto then. So for years, Milford was a fat cat getting way beyond what really comparatively they should have been receiving if you're looking at any rational factor. And so I guess the townships had enough of that and went ahead and came up with an alternative formula. The formula was based on, they took the pot that all of us would get, townships, cities, and villages, and took 25% from that pot, divided it by however many entities there were, and everybody got that set amount. Then the rest was based on population. So by doing that, your big townships, I won't mention one, I'll just mention a neighbor. No, I shouldn't mention that one either. Oh my God, I can't, the two of you. As an example, Union Township went from 140,000 to 285,000 by changing the formula. Miami Township went from 132,000 to 254,000 by changing the formula. The only ones that lost under this new formula, literally, were cities and villages. Only the two tiny little Neville and Shiloh didn't. Otherwise, all that extra money came from us and from the villages. So we, as a mayor's association, as villages and cities, tried to have a little get-together last spring to kind of talk about it, maybe something that seemed a little more rational, but still it made us feel it, but didn't quite make fat cats of these big townships. And that was not well attended by the townships because they're very happy with their formula. So this year they actually did invite us to their township meeting. We came prepared with an alternative formula, which instead of 25-75, it was 50-50. So 50% of the pot is taken, divided by however many entities they are. Everybody gets that, and then the rest is population. And even doing that, these top townships with the most population were still doing way better than they were under the Milford plan. They just weren't quite the pigs that they were under their plan. So
Is that a government
it
term?
is. It's a legal term, actually. So I thought we were getting some traction at that meeting. Well, these small townships, when I handed this out and showed them, all you got to do is look at the yellow column. If you're making more money than you are in the gray column, you might want to think about joining the cities and villages and join our plan. So we actually had some traction. They said we'll take a month and think about it, and we had a meeting last Thursday. And between those two meetings, the 5 big townships and Milford got together and came up with yet another plan by which they all gave some more money to Milford. So Milford now has, again, an outsized amount of money, they're up to 98,000, where if you were to compare what their population, because that's all I kept hearing, it should be all about population. If you compare what their population actually is to, say, Tate Township, which is the same, Tate's only going to make 50,000 under this plan, and Milford's making 99,000. It's nonsensical, but for some reason, these townships at this meeting were like, well, we think we should go along with that. Some of them took our resolutions that we had prepared and said that they're going to take it back to their townships. We're hopeful that more than just a few will actually adopt ours and maybe at least send a message to the commissioners that this isn't fair, that these just a few handful of big townships can rule the world. But so that's what we're asking. All of the villages, not Milford, but our city, and we think some townships are going to pass this 50-50 plan that you have before you tonight, which it's not a huge amount of money difference for us, but I don't know. I just thought, to me, it's much more fair that the local government fund, if you read the statute, is supposed to be based, if you use the statutory formula versus an alternative method, on need. So they were really at this meeting complaining about population. We have all these people. We should have more money. All right, well, the opposite of that is actually the money's supposed to help people like the villages of Shiloh and Neville and Felicity, Moscow, that are also entities in this county that if we were to go back to the statutory formula, would probably get more than some of these big townships if we're basing it actually on need. So, I don't know. I thought our formula, we're all still losing. Even under ours, we're all still losing, just not so much. But to me, it's the fairest that is least out there. I don't know that it will carry the day. But that's what we're asking that we pass tonight. With that long-winded formula, does anybody have any questions about that? Yes, Vice Mayor.
Just have a comment that I appreciate your leadership, Mayor, on this issue. You really went to school on it, I know, and you did exercise your voice to try to come up with something that's more equitable, and I know council appreciates that, and you stood up for us, and we appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I know more about this than I ever wanted to know. Any other comments or questions? Read the resolution, please.
Resolution authorizing adoption of an alternative method of apportionment for the undivided local government fund for calendar year 2023 that per Ohio Revised Code section 5747.53 excludes the approval of otherwise required of the legislative authority of the city located wholly or partially in the county with the greatest population.
All right, any comments on the resolution? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yep.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps,
Yes.
Mr. Ping.
Yes.
Resolution 52 is adopted by a vote of 6 to
Kennedy?
0.
This city may, for those of you who attend council meetings, the city has what we call our scheduled municipal positions, and the scheduled municipal positions is it sets the salary range, the number of authorized positions for each non-bargaining position. So all of the non-CBA employees. So this typically, council will adjust this, and it's an ordinance, so it takes 2 readings. We recently modified, we added a police clerk position, if you recall, following some funding that we received through body worn camera grant. And we also modified a position of an existing employee with no fiscal. What the council also addresses this is every 3 years when the collective bargaining agreement is set with our bargaining union with the police officers and police lieutenants, following that salary structure, I present that to council, and we set the raises for all of our non-bargaining employees for 3 years. Then that's all. Then those go out each year. Council doesn't have to ever address them again for 3 years. What I'm finding is a couple things, and one of the things we're finding is that the situation that we have with these ranges, it's somewhat awards it through merit increases up and above raises, and long tenured employees are often at the maximum amount for their position. So you take any position, utility billing clerk, there's one position authorized. This also dictates whether it's classified or non-classified for civil service processes. It says that Lisa is a pay range 3, and it says what her minimum and maximum salary is. So Lisa is an example. Lisa has nothing to look forward to from a work standpoint. She'll get that set raise. If the city wanted to give Lisa a merit increase for any reason whatsoever, we simply cannot. All I'm doing here is asking to take the maximum amount, increase it by 7% across the board for non-collective bargaining. It has nothing to do with our CBA. It does not impact our CBA. It has no immediate fiscal impact. It simply allows the city to say that there are something up and above the standard 3% or whatever we call COLAs, what everyone calls COLA, cost of living adjustments. So I've given this a lot of consideration. I messed around with various numbers. I think this really reaches out to some of our people in pay range 1s. Current maximum 47,000. These are people that are here every day serving the city. This is probably the most customer service orientated group, from police officers to public works to the ladies that take your utility payments at the window. It is something that the city's proud of. It falls in line with one of the council goals. And I would like to be in a position that we can offer some merit increases. It helps me also with larger positions. It's no secret the city is down to a few candidates for the police chief position. I finished the interviews and I thought to myself, every one of those guys is probably making more than my top end right now, the police chief position. I would like to have a little bit of flexibility for that. It impacts all sources. So this simply is a first reading. I only did the maximums because I didn't want to have to automatically give someone who just started an increase because they're still at the bottom of the range and technically wouldn't be. It is fair. I think if you look at those numbers and compare them to other communities, we're still low. I know multiple employees who work for us, valuable employees such as Misty and Mark and Corey. They get options. They have options. They can leave and stay within the city's pension system. So it is my job as city manager to do what I can to keep good, talented people in this position. So this is simply a 7% increase to the top end of everybody's salary range across the board for non-contractual and non-CBA employees.
Any comments or questions? Yes, Mr. Blair?
I don't know if this is a an accessible answer, or whether it, what's the average tenure of of the employees on this list?
Oh boy, that sure does range from Eva to Eva and Misty at the high end to Sean Tinklehoff, who just started at Public Works. I would say, and Misty, would you say it's in the 8 to 9 to 10 year range probably when you start? We got a lot of newbies too over there. The ladies up front, the sort of heart and soul, the first faces people see, they're all in the 6-7 year range.
Okay, that's good
Yeah.
enough. That's good. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, I support this. I mean, I know Dave has struggled with this. We do have very dedicated employees here, and there should be more incentive. Some employees sit in a chair and get the same same raise as others that are really standout performers. There ought to be some incentive if you're a standout performer. So I think it's a good idea. You want to read the ordinance, please?
Ordinance amending the schedule of municipal positions to increase the maximum salary range for non-bargaining city personnel. Repealing Ordinance 2022-39.
All right, it was just a first reading only. Mr. Medler.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we have our 3 standard utility assessment items. There are currently a total of 10 properties on the list. Last time there were 12.
All right, does anybody have any questions on these? Yes, Mr. Hart.
Any overlap in those properties, the 12 there before and the 10 they're on now?
A lot of them are the same ones, but some come and go.
Anyone else? All right, let's read the first ordinance.
Ordinance assessing liens for unpaid utility bills on property in Claremont County owed to the city of Loveland and declaring an emergency.
Any comment? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Ordinance 53 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Read the next ordinance when you're ready.
Ordinance assessing liens for unpaid utility bills on property in Warren County owed to the city of Loveland and declaring an emergency.
Comment? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Ordinance 54 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
And the last ordinance?
Ordinance assessing liens for unpaid utility bills on property in Hamilton County owed to the city of Loveland and declaring an emergency.
Comment? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Ordinance 55 is adopted by a vote of 6-0.
Mr. Medler?
Thank you, Mayor. We would like to request the annual hearing for the 2023 tax budget. As you may remember, the tax budget is more of a generalized estimate of what we would plan to receive from tax revenues in the coming year, mostly used just for estimates from counties for our local government funds. We were required to do a hearing before the 15th of July. As you may recall, last year there was a power outage or something like that when we were going to have our hearing, and there was a delay. We had to do it, come back the next day, so you try not to put yourself right up against the line, because if there's an issue, you could get yourself into trouble. So we're hoping to have the hearing on June 28th and then approve a resolution on July 12th, well ahead of the deadline.
All right. Any comments or questions? Yes.
If
Vice Mayor?
somebody wants to see the tax budget, where would they go to get it?
So once it gets approved, we have it here in the finance office, and we will put it on the record in the resolution that will be passed.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Would someone care to make a motion consistent with the recommendation?
I move that we schedule a public hearing on June 28th, 2022 at or about 7 p.m. to receive comments regarding the 2023 tax budget.
Thank you. Is there-
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
There are various committee minutes and reports. Any comments on those? All right. Under City Council reports, Vice Mayor did allude to our newsletter that went out, I think, last week, maybe. We're going to do this twice a year, and I've heard nothing but very positive comments about it. I know this was an all-staff effort, correct? But I'm assuming that
Krista really
really did.
Krista, this was Krista Rose's baby. Yeah, I mean, really nice job. It gives us an opportunity. Not everybody gets online. Not everybody has social media, so it's an opportunity for get some information to your door. That's a much deeper dive into some of the issues that we're trying to address and good things happening in our city. So I think it's very well done. Let's see. Yes,
Are you done with that piece?
I'm done with that piece.
Okay.
Are you going to comment on this?
Indirectly. Councilman Ping and Councilman Hart and I met with a group of local citizens last week on the 19th. Mr. Scovaner among them, and I hope you'll convey my comments to them the next time you see them. I think we met for about an hour and a half, had a very good, wide-ranging discussion. I thought it was enlightening and interesting, and a great exchange. I noticed that on page 12 and 13 of tonight's agenda, where Mr. Kennedy spoke about the goals of the city, that a number of the goals as identified earlier this year, including the business of sidewalks, the business of a possible northern or other crossing of a bridge, and those sorts of things were in the goals that we set. I wanted to make record of that. I wanted to thank Mr. Scovaner and Mr. Stanton for putting that group together. And I came away with seven specific items, which I shared with Mr. Kennedy, and he agreed that some of them, definitely bear some more look at, which we'll take. I want to, suggest that Mr. Hart and Mr. Ping, you can make your own comments, but I had a great experience at it.
Yeah, I'll back that up with seconding all you said. I enjoyed that conversation quite a bit. It was it was enlightening is a good word. Hearing some of the frustrations from some of the people in our northernmost and easternmost part of the city, some of the things that they deal with, and just traveling about town every day. And I think that there was a nice exchange in terms of people understanding where we are in our position in terms of how long things take to get done and the processes that go behind those things. Because I think there was a little bit of misunderstanding about some, so clearing up some of that, but also having a chance to just dialogue back and forth about where residents are, where we are in terms of trying to get those things done, those questions answered. It was a really nice exchange.
All right.
Yeah, I wouldn't add anything except one thing, and that is specifically out of that meeting, one of the comments, unsolicited and so forth, was about the newsletter, and specifically saying, it was such a great thing, read it cover to cover, shared it with some other people. There is no replacement for communication, whether that's in the written form or meeting with people. And I think anything we can do as a city that promotes that through the sign that Dave worked so hard to get put up, and the newsletter and the website, all of those are great ways to get that information out there rather than relying on third-party sources.
Thank you. All right, upcoming events. City offices will be closed Monday, May 30th in observance of Memorial Day. The city's Veterans Memorial Committee has organized a Memorial Day parade and ceremony to be held on Monday, May 30th. The parade begins at 9 a.m. at the Loveland Elementary School and will travel to the Veterans Memorial. Immediately following the parade, a ceremony will take place at the memorial. This year's guest speaker is Colonel Terry Johnson, who is also our senator that represents us in Claremont County. Applications for Loveland U are due by June 1st. On June 4th, the City of Loveland and Sims Township will host a hazardous household waste collection day at Loveland High School from 8 to 10. We had our first Sunday concert in the park this past Sunday, and Harmonics, so a local band, played. And in the 3 years we've been doing this, I guess, in a row, I would say that was the largest crowd that I've seen at one of these. It was hopping for a relatively cool night. It was a very nice event, and Harmonics were wonderful. So the next concert in the park will be on Sunday, June 12th, also at Nisbet. It's Ohio's Honky Tonk Angel, Jesse Lynn, and the TNT Band Express. They will perform from 6 to 8. Did I read that wrong?
No. You're fine.
You gonna be there, Dave?
Yeah, I'm set up for it. I just Misty
Mm-hmm.
a little green.
Okay. Is this a Misty choice? Does anybody else have any announcements? All right.
Just one thing
Yes.
there. Reminder, I believe submittals for candidates for the to fill the open position that's due the June 1st, correct?
That is accurate. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Payne. Anyone else? All right. I believe we need a motion for executive session. Someone care to make that motion?
I'll move to adjourn to executive session pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 121.22 G3 to confer with counsel regarding disputes that are the subject of imminent litigation.
Thank you. Join us.
Second.
Oh, yeah. Let's call the roll.
Read a roll.
It's a good idea. Call the roll.
Mr. Ping,
Yes.
Mayor Bailey,
Yes.
Mr. Bateman,
Yes.
Mr. Blair,
Yes.
Mr. Hart,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0.
5. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Mayor Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Bateman?
Yes.
Mr. Blair?
Half of Paxton Rangers everywhere. Yes.
Mr. Hart? Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Phelps?
Yes.
Mr. Ping?
Yes.
Motion carries.